Hi everyone, it's that time again. You're here from the Gnome, and we're going to do a preview of this weekend's sporting action. The first thing I'd like to talk about before we go into the weekend's action is the Managers League table that's recently been released across the internet, and I got my information from the BBC website. Using some kind of math magic, they've rated and reviewed all of the managers in the leagues as to who is the best and who is the worst. Unsurprisingly, Sir Alex Ferguson's come out on top, and really can't argue with that. He's managed to keep a title-winning side together really for the last 10-15 years, and nobody's come close with any consistency. Though there is some interesting people on this list, probably higher than you would expect. So if you haven't had a look at the list, prepare to be surprised. Steve Kean is 7th. Steve Kean is the 7th best manager according to this survey. Really? How? I mean, okay, he was kind of doing alright at Blackburn in the Championship after spending £8 million on Jordan Rhodes, but Steve Kean was a very, 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 very poor manager. He took a side that was 7th in the Premier League under Allardyce and took them down like a rock. So, yeah, he's the 7th best manager. Why would you want to pick anyone else if you were a budding chairman? A bit further down, Steve Bruce is 14th. Steve Bruce is the 14th best manager, and he's above Rafa Benitez. I know Rafa Benitez is a divisive character. Some people like him, some people hate him. But are they actually saying that Steve Bruce, with his little home of Egyptians in Hull, is a better manager than Rafa Benitez? And the other one, which may surprise you, is Mick McCarthy is on the list. Yes, that Mick McCarthy. It is, I'm not just picking excellent managers here who are awful, though it just happens to be a happy coincidence that excellent managers are awful, and also current Sunderland managers. Mick McCarthy himself is above Arsene Wenger in the list. I know Arsene Wenger has had a great season, but they're through the Champions League, they're doing alright in the league, but no, clearly not as good as Mick McCarthy. So feel free to have a look at the rest of the list, comment on below if anything you find a bit weird. They're the ones I kind of raised the eyebrows most of. Yeah, Steve Kean. Steve Kean being the main one. Steve Kean. I'm going to just keep saying Steve Kean until he either turns up like the Candyman or disappears from the face of the earth. Although, who has heard of him since he got sacked by Chicken McNuggets Blackburn Rovers? I wonder what he is doing these days. So if you're watching Steve Kean, please reply. I'd love to find out what you're doing these days. So getting back onto the actual football fixtures kind of things, in the early kick-off, the live game on Saturday, Tottenham Hotspur host Newcastle. The kind of two big talking points would be around the African Cup of Nations, with both Ivory Coast and Togo going out. Will Adebayor or Teode actually make it to the teams and into the first 11? Tottenham are probably needing Adebayor more than Newcastle are needing Teode at the moment, but Adebayor isn't the most reliable in flights, and I'd be very shocked to actually see him, if at all, turn up or actually start. That does leave a lot of strikers at Tottenham, probably meaning they're going to play with Clint Dempsey up front, with Gareth Bale just behind him. Newcastle, if they don't play Teode, they do have the mighty James Perch to anchor the midfield. And I'm going to go on a limb here, and I'm going to say that if James Perch plays, as long as James Perch is on the pitch, Gareth Bale will not score a goal. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm that confident in James Perch's ability to marshal the midfield. Going back to the first, if not second game of the season, Tottenham-Newcastle, Gareth Bale had a very poor game. Why? Because James Perch was on, and James Perch was playing a left back in that game. Now he's got his more comfortable centre midfield position, and Gareth Bale is kind of lurking about in the kind of in between the lines between forward and midfield, more centrally now than ever. He's going to go straight into James Perch's back pocket. I would say that if James Perch has another stormer, which he will, they should rename St James's Park to St James's Perch. It's the least we could do for the Mansfield Zanetti, superstar that he is. So my prediction for that game, I'm going to go 1-1. I can see us scoring, I can also see them scoring, which is why I've got 2 goals. It's that kind of super insight that you come to expect from this channel. And I think that they'll probably score from a corner. Clearly, we're not going to score from a corner ever. So I'll say Kabay free kick, boom, top corner. So my prediction for Newcastle versus Spurs, 1-1. And as a Newcastle fan, I'd be pretty delighted with that. As a Spurs fan, if there's any Spurs fans out there, they'd probably be expecting those 3 points. But Newcastle have shown over the last couple of games they've got a bit of fight back in them. If Newcastle get 3 wins on the bounce, that'd be pretty fantastic. But I think the game is just a one step too far. In what's probably going to be Rafa Benitez's last game, unless they win, Chelsea are hosting Wigan. And really, on paper, this should be a cakewalk for Chelsea. They've got the players, they've got the money, and Wigan have got Franco DeSando, whatever his name is, who plays good twice a season. Maybe this weekend is going to be his time. Frank Lampard has come off the back of 2 games, scoring 2 pretty fantastic goals to reassert his dominance in centre midfield. Bar is going to be wearing a mask, Phantom of the Opera stroke Shola Miobi style. But will he be enough to keep Fernando Torres out of the game, as Fernando Torres has to be picked because he's Abramovich's pet. I do find it strange that Chelsea have ruined some of the best strikers in recent times. If you think they've had on their books at one time or another Andrei Shevchenko, who was pretty immense, Hernan Crespo, who they broke entirely, and I love Hernan Crespo, and now Fernando Torres. That's probably £120 million worth of talent that they've managed to eke probably double-figure goals out of. What is it at Chelsea that just ruins centre-forwards? Clearly some centre-forwards do love it there. Didier Drogba was immense through his entire time wearing a blue shirt at Chelsea. But some simply don't work. And as much as I would love to have seen Hernan Crespo light up the Premier League, he's there for about a year before sculling back off to Italy. And in the game that nobody cares about, Norwich host Fulham. And we have Sunderland versus Arsenal, which should be an interesting game. Is Martin O'Neill going to go all guns blazing, throwing Danny Graham and Fletcher up together? Or is he going to continue 4-5-1 formation and try and kind of strangle the midfield from Arsenal? Arsenal these days are looking on the up. Theo Walcott is, to his defence, kind of proving that perhaps he should be playing as centre forward, as he has done really, really well of late. Aaron Ramsey's starting to mature. Jack Wilshere's good to see back, who had a good game against Brazil midweek for England. So I would say Arsenal are kind of on the up. They are still hilarious at the back. They look like classic Newcastle at the back, like a bunch of complete strangers. So I would say Sunderland probably are going to score. But I could really see Arsenal, if they all click together, actually give Sunderland a hiding. So I'm going to predict a good 3-1 score for Arsenal. On Sunday, we also have Man United versus Everton, a repeat of the 4-4 classic from last season. Is it going to be 4-4 this season? No, it's not. In any way, shape or form is it going to be 4-4, because Jellyfish is broken and there's only so much Fellaini can do on his own. It's not to say Everton have a bad side. They've probably got a best side they've had since they were good back in the 60s. But for some reason, similar to Cisse, he's significantly lost his form based on his goal-scoring run last season. It is a huge shame. Victor Anichebe has stepped up. I really don't like Victor Anichebe. I don't think he's a very good player, though he always scores against Newcastle. And the last game in Newcastle, as soon as he came on, I'm happy to say the quote, Anichebe is rubbish, but he will score. And I think he scored with about his second touch. I've got that kind of lucky insight. I know how Newcastle defend. So Man U Everton can really only see this as a home win. Man U have been pretty dominant of late. Rooney, Van Persie, Chicharito as a forward 3, even having Danny Welbeck as your 4th choice striker isn't too bad. I would still say they're a bit lacking in centre midfield. Michael Carrick can only do so much because he's, well, Michael Carrick. But out wide they've got players to hurt. Which you've got Ashley Young, Nani, Kagawa and Valencia, some of the better wingers in the actual Premier League and probably in the world. So it's decent to pick from. They're looking a bit more solid at the back now that Virgil and Ferdinand are together. And the more games Phil Jones, not Phil Evans, who's Phil Evans? Phil Jones gets and Chris Smalling gets can only be better for English football. And so I would say a nice, basically simple 2-0 victory for Man United there. And in the game to determine who is the worst side ever to play in claret and blue, we have Aston Villa versus West Ham. Basically, who wants to get relegated? Hopefully it's going to be Aston Villa. Andy Carroll should start again, dodging any kind of Findus arguments. But Aston Villa are looking a side completely lost. They look like they're ready to go down, and good riddance to them. Basically, fuck Aston Villa. So that's my review of this weekend's upcoming sporting events. And by sporting events, I mean football, because really that's the only sport that matters, and you all agree. So thank you very much for watching. I'll probably do a video post-games to see how bad my guesses were against what actually happened. So thank you very much for everyone watching. Please share, comment, like, all that kind of fun stuff. And good night. Thank you.